When I'm out and about in the community, I wear AARP logo, whether it's a hat or shirt or whatever. And people will come up to me. The two most common things that people ask about are we do shredathons, where we will take people's documents and
Mm-hmm.
we will shred them for free, up to 3 boxes of them. And we do them all over the state a few times a year. And it's really very popular and people love it. And the other thing that people talk to me a lot about is tax aid, where we will
Mm.
help people and prepare their taxes for them.
Yep.
And I know there's hundreds of people throughout the state. They're very busy right now, but there's hundreds of people's taxes that are prepared every year by these folks, and very popular.
You talking about shredding documents, that's going to be the most popular thing I've ever had on my show because I myself have piles all over my house of like, I can't throw this in the trash. Like, I have to do something with this. You're listening to New Hampshire Has Issues. I am your host from the future, Liz Canada. One of the hardest parts about making this podcast is the editing process because it takes a lot of time. My wife, Molly, often wonders, why does it take so long to get an episode finished, but also go back to incredible conversations that I've had with guests and then edit down for timing is really difficult. It's difficult if you're a writer and you're editing your own work, but as a podcast host, I have to really think about, what my guests have shared, and then I have to make difficult decisions. That's part of this whole gig, I guess. So something that we talk about in this episode, AARP New Hampshire has community challenge grants. They're going to talk about one specifically around libraries, but the process is every year. The deadline has already passed, but I want you to keep it in mind. If you're at a nonprofit or in a municipality, something to check out. I'll have links in the show notes. Opportunities to make the community a little bit better for folks who are seniors and for folks in general. Maybe you looked at the title of this episode and thought, well, this episode can't be for me. I'm New Hampshire young. Me too, friend. And yet, what AARP New Hampshire is working on and what we talk about in this episode is relevant to all of us. And I'm not going to spoil it, but Christina and Pat informed me of something later on in this episode, and the gasp that I have is so genuine. I could not believe what they were telling me. No spoilers. This is a no spoiler household. If you would like to support the show and the editing process and all the time that it takes, you can go to patreon.com/NHHasIssues. If you are excited about the snow melting and you are ready to really start thinking about your garden, the sponsor of the show is Seacoast Soils. Information in the show notes. If you have an idea for an episode, send me an email, newhampshirehasissues@gmail.com. I love to hear from listeners. Enjoy the episode. Thank you for listening. So welcome to New Hampshire Has Issues. I am your host, Liz Canada, and joining me today are two guests to talk about New Hampshire's seniors and issues impacting seniors. Pat McDermott, the volunteer state president of AARP New Hampshire, and Christina FitzPatrick, the state director of AARP New Hampshire. Pat and Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
I am so delighted that you're both able to join. We have had to reschedule this a few times because of 1,000 things in the winter in New Hampshire that come up. So I like to do a tagline at the top of the show. Welcome to New Hampshire Has Issues, the podcast that dares to ask, how close am I to being an AARP member? We'll get into it. I'm wondering if you have a tagline for this episode.
Something about like AARP, it's more than what you think.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and I was on a similar line of what you're going to learn about AARP that you didn't know.
What I know about AARP feels like a bit of information, but I feel like it is very applicable to, let's just say, a large portion of our New Hampshire population.
Mm-hmm.
So I said it as a joke-ish, but I'm 43, full transparency. How close am I to being part of AARP New Hampshire?
AARP sees its constituency as being people 50 and older. However, a little known fact is that you can join at any age, and take advantage of some of the benefits. So, fun fact is that our fastest growing age segment are people in their 30s,
Oh
because there are some TikTok influencers out there who
my
found out that you
God.
can join at any age and that you can get access to the discounts, among other things. And so they love it and they're joining at a fairly high rate.
The TikTokers are taking on AARP. I love that. Okay, so what I'm hearing is I could be part of AARP right now.
Exactly. And if you're lucky, there will be a free giveaway when you join, because there are some
Ooh.
really good ones out there.
This is true. And our older folks, the over 50 folks, we like the free stuff. So that's always an enticement for us to join or re-up and to participate. But to build on what Christina said about the TikTok folks, I believe it's a true story. It could be an urban legend, but a few years ago, one of these influencers reported that there was this great deal on a trip to Europe, and you could save hundreds of dollars going through AARP travel. And so they publicized this like crazy. And so people signed up, people under 50 and people in their 30s, whatever, signed up to the tune of about 150,000 people nationwide to be members. And the CEO of AARP was saying, "Oh, what great membership drive tactics did you guys use to get this to happen?" And it really was just kind of by accident that this influencer did it. So, yeah, long story, but you can join anytime, Liz.
Okay, and sounds like I can go to Europe maybe. This sounds
Maybe.
incredible. The
Even
benefits are
better.
very significant. Wow, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
What is it that AARP New Hampshire does? And what does AARP stand for? Two-part question.
Well, let me start there. So, when our age range was 65 and older, AARP stood for American Association of Retired People.
Hmm.
So that was it. But at some point, well, when we dropped our age from 65 to 50, retired people was no longer accurate in terms of who we represent and who we serve. And so from that moment on, we're just letters. Now we're just AARP. It doesn't stand for anything. There was
You
a
stand for lots of things.
we stand for lots of things.
Stand lots
Yes.
of things, yes.
So in terms of what AARP does, so we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. Our mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. And we do that in a number of different ways. One is by doing a variety of things to help strengthen communities. Another is to advocate for policies that help people live and age in New Hampshire. And then we do a lot of programming and providing of education. So some of the programming is really fun. So we talk about fun with purpose. And some of our activities lean more towards fun, and some of them lean more towards purpose through webinars and things like that. But regardless, our point is we want to educate people, give them resources, and give them opportunities. So, for example, family caregiving is one of our top issues. These are people who provide care of some sort to an adult with a health condition, and it can be a very isolating experience. So, we provide a series of online painting classes where we tell you ahead of time what materials you need, and then you tune in and get walked through how to paint a picture. And we
Hmm.
hear from a lot of family caregivers who talk to us about how meaningful that is to them, because it's just an hour, it's a short break, helps them focus on something else other than the day-to-day challenges of caring for a loved one.
And I know, Liz, that you introduced us, but maybe I can expand upon that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer, so I'm not in Christina's staff. So I come from a probably a little different perspective. But I think one of the things that we do, and I agree, I love the tagline that we do fun with purpose. But I think one of the things that happens beyond that is we get people to come together, whether it's in person or online. My favorite thing is cooking. We have pretty much monthly cooking demonstrations. You can cook along with the person, or you can just watch and then go back and get the recipes. There's a real social aspect to it, and it just gets people together. And people, particularly older people, may not have the networks that they had when they were working, and this is a great opportunity for them to get the social interaction that is so important for people to stay healthy as they age.
In addition to all the programming, we also have a very vibrant volunteer corps. So we have more than 150 volunteers in the state.
Wow.
Pat is just one of them. I might say he's the best one, but you know, these volunteers are really active. They are why we can do as much as we do. We're a staff of 5 and we work hard and we have an impact, but because of these volunteers, we can really expand our reach. And so the volunteering fills a number of different roles. One is just that social connection piece. It's fun to see these groups of volunteers when they get together. Some of them have developed really close friendships, which is just beautiful to see. And I feel like as an adult, it can be hard to make new friends. So I'm really glad that um, that's sort of a byproduct of what we do.
Totally.
And we have stories of people who lost their spouse and were looking for a way to get out and do things. And so they joined the AARP volunteer groups.
That's incredible. And I recently had an episode with my CrossFit coach. We talked about community, how important it is to be around people who may not be exactly like you, may have different backgrounds, but just caring for other people, caring for yourself. And it sounds like what your organization, what your volunteers are doing is building community when we could feel super isolated, especially if folks are retiring or leaving the workforce. My closest buddies are my people I work with. I can appreciate that it could feel a little bit more alone as you get older if you don't have sort of dedicated space.
And we like to celebrate a lot, and there's purpose behind that as well. We do have people with vastly different backgrounds and experiences and it's nice to get people together, have fun, have some ice cream, or play a few games,
Love ice cream.
and just as a thank you for the volunteers, or either specific groups of volunteers or just our volunteers in general. So I think that's a big part of what we do. It sounds like play, but it has a purpose as well.
I am thinking as we're chatting about someone who might be listening in and is like, all right, AARP is here. They're going to talk about seniors. That's probably not about me. So what's your pitch to them? What's your pitch to the listener who's like, this episode might not be something that I have to think about?
I'd say one of the things that I like to point out with AARP and what we do is we are focused on people 50 and older. But if you are doing what's necessary to help adjust to an aging population and doing what's good for an aging population, you're going to help everyone. A good example is of this kind of universal design is when the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed many years ago. One of the benefits of it was that sidewalks had developed curb cuts so that somebody who had a mobility impairment could easily cross the street and didn't have to step off of the sidewalk to be able to cross the street. And so now we have all these sidewalks with curb cuts. That's the standard. And it does help people with mobility impairments, but it also helps parents who have strollers, who are, rolling their little kids around. And that's the same with the issues that affect older adults. So we know housing is a huge issue
Huge. Absolutely.
in the state, housing affordability and availability. And that's true for everyone. So I hear a lot about younger people and how they have trouble finding a place to rent or finding a starter home. And sometimes I hear that there's a kind of pitting the younger people against older people, and older people aren't giving up their homes. They're not, and if only they would change their behavior, then younger people wouldn't have this problem. But in fact, there's just scarcity and nobody's getting what they need. And, a lot of older people would like to downsize. They want to downsize into smaller homes. So maybe those are the same homes that younger people who are just buying their first home, maybe that's the same type of home. And it's not a problem that one or another of these groups is looking for that kind of house. It's that there aren't enough of those kinds of houses to go around to meet
Totally.
the demand. So we're doing work, advocacy work at the state level to try to do what it takes to increase the supply of housing, and we're in a big coalition doing that. So so I think there's probably a conception that we're about like very old people. People might think of walkers and stuff and when they think about AARP. But if you dig a little and see what are the issues we're pursuing at the State House this year, what kinds of topics we write about or host information sessions about, they are things that are relevant to everyone.
Yeah, the housing issue is so significant. I've had quite a few episodes, and AARP came up in the first one that I did with Nick Taylor. We were talking about where are all the affordable houses? Where are people supposed to live? And he talked about the coalition and that it is a very broad and diverse coalition. And that includes folks who are seniors wanting to be able to live near their family members who maybe they don't want the entire, single family home just to themselves. Maybe they want a smaller unit on the property that they can build so that they can still live nearby. How do you all see that working in New Hampshire? How's New Hampshire doing when it comes to supporting seniors being able to live near their families? How's New Hampshire doing in that?
There was one bill that passed during the last session about accessory dwelling units, which was a big
ADUs.
victory.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah,
ADUs, which is important for a lot of people. ARP had, I think, a different kind of perspective on why we thought those were so important.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to look at it. One is what you were just saying, Liz, is that someone can have maybe a larger home and now the children are gone and they want to downsize, but they can downsize with an ADU either in that home or attached to it
mm-hmm.
or whatever, and then maybe get their adult children or one of them with their families to come back and live in the main house. That certainly is a scenario. I have a friend who lives in Nashua who's trying to do that right now. He's about my age and he's looking towards the future, he and his wife, and they want to add an ADU to their house. The flip side of that is they could put an ADU on your house or again next to your house and then rent out your larger house and create some income for the
Mm,
older folks that they can have going forward. So it can work in multiple ways, and it's something that I think, we're in New Hampshire, so there's local
we
control,
are.
and not all communities are embracing this, but it is a state law that allows by right ADUs to be built under all the protections and the zoning and all of the things that are required by the individual communities, but it is allowed, and we're fighting to make sure it stays that way because it takes time. You can't just say, "Oh, there's ADU bill and you can build one now." It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time for this to happen. So we've got to keep it in play, and we're working hard for that.
Liz, in terms of your question about how New Hampshire's doing with adjusting to an aging population, we are one of the oldest populations in the country. So
We sure are.
in terms of median age is around 43. Only Maine is older than us.
That's me.
We are
I'm literally, that's
You-
literally
You
me.
are the
You're
median.
right there.
Yes,
Oh boy.
exactly.
Okay. Very representative.
We're one of only a few states where the size of the population 65 and older is actually larger than the size of the population under age 18. So
Wow.
those are some real markers that we need to keep in mind. One of the things that New Hampshire is doing now, it's led by the Commission on Aging, is we're putting together a multi-sector plan for aging. And the idea is that as the population ages, we need to align our policies and programs and investments across the government to better meet the needs of the aging population and people with disabilities. And so when you do that, when you elevate the common goals that we have in the state, it reduces duplication, streamlines efforts and resources. And so we are at the beginning stages of that. They try to keep an eye out for what are the issues, what are the issues in the legislature that need to be addressed. And then they've done things like a transportation needs assessment. They did a survey last year and some focus groups to find out from the older population, what's most important to you when it comes to transportation because there's limited resources. We need to prioritize. And so gather information from the community, share that, and then people can use that information to make decisions.
We jumped into housing right away, but what are the issues that New Hampshire seniors face?
One of the topics that we spend a lot of time thinking about is long-term services and supports. So these are the health-related services that people need access to as they age. We want people to have health insurance so they can get the health care that they need. We want them to have transportation to get to their providers. More and more, we want them to have access to affordable broadband services so they can take advantage of telehealth. And we also want people to be able to get the services that they need in their home rather than having nursing homes being the only option because nursing homes are very expensive.
Yep.
They're very necessary. I mean, sometimes
Yep.
your level of healthcare need, you need a facility like that so that you get the help that you need. But oftentimes, you can get a good amount of care in your home if you have the right supports and services. Right now, the New Hampshire system is the way that government payments are made and the requirements of different things. Our system is heavily tilted towards sort of channeling people into nursing homes rather than providing the support they need at home. And people would rather stay at home, stay in their communities, if at all possible. And
Of
we need to
course.
make it more possible to do that.
Right. So what I heard, if I can speak it back to make sure that I'm getting it, healthcare that's affordable and accessible, that's not just for seniors, that's for everybody, right? Like everybody wants affordable healthcare. Everybody wants accessible healthcare. All right, check, check. Transportation, I'll take the controversial stance. I understand that you may not, but it feels like we don't have a lot of transportation options in New Hampshire. So transportation being more than just having to own a car, that's not just for seniors as well. Literally everyone needs to get one place to another. Broadband access, all of this seems like it's applicable to everybody, Christina and Pat. And the affordable housing and being able to stay in a home and being able to stay where you are and be able to afford it. So how's it going when you advocate for these things? Like that's a lot of stuff, but it covers everybody in New Hampshire. All the Granite Staters want those things. So Pat, as a volunteer, as somebody who is out there representing, yourself, but also the organization, like how is it going to making change in these issues?
These are very important issues for the 50 plus and for everybody in the state.
And the 50
And
minus.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
50 minus, yeah, the under 50. And I think it's going really well. There's a long way still to go, but we're definitely making strides towards successfully, as we talked about the ADUs, and we didn't, I guess, talk specifically about prescription drugs, but we had some success with that a couple of years ago, getting some of those prices at least under control. What's really fun is that when we do find an issue that we're supporting, or sometimes not supporting, but mostly supporting, and we go to the legislature in a committee hearing and testify, we'll have multiple folks. Some of us volunteers, as well as some of the staff, may testify specifically on the bill. But the real fun thing is that we'll bring a bunch of our volunteers, and guess what? We'll all wear red. And so we bring the red wave, no sports team, but, no political connection, but AARP's red wave to these hearings. And believe me, the legislators notice.
This is reminding me of last year for the state budget. I am remembering being in Representatives Hall in the State House, huge room. So for our listeners who's never been to the State House, it's where all 400 of those state reps sit to take votes. And for the state budget public hearing, there were a lot of people who came out to testify. And I remember seeing those red shirts in there.
Absolutely. We have a group, it's quite a large group, Capital City Task Force, that works on legislation. And that's the crew that will show up.
We talk about these issues and how they are, housing, transportation, broadband, healthcare. These are all topics that hit every one of us. But different groups might bring different perspectives on that. And so, for example, with broadband, we talk about meaningful broadband access. So affordability is one thing. that affects everyone. The two that affect the older generation who didn't grow up with internet access and email and websites and everything else.
Listener, Pat is raising his hand right now. That's fine. He's raising his hand. Mm-hmm.
He's great. He does well. They may not have a device. They could really benefit from it, but they haven't. They don't have a smartphone. They don't have a iPad. They don't have a computer. And even if they did have that, they don't know how to use it. It's probably hard for a lot of us to remember learning how to use a computer.
Totally.
Not understanding how a mouse works. Like, it is not intuitive that what you are doing with your hand down on a table is affecting the little pointer that's up on the screen. And that's just a little thing. I mean, if you haven't spent time around websites, and you have those 3 horizontal lines that I've heard developers call that the hamburger, you wouldn't know that if you want to find information on the website, click on that and it'll tell you all the different sections. There's a big need for, we're a rural state. We need more infrastructure investment so that we expand the availability of high-speed internet. That is absolutely true, and we need money for that. But if we don't pay attention to getting people devices and helping them learn how to use them, then we're going to leave a section of people behind. So part of AARP's role is to join and work with other people to spread information, advocate, and then make sure that the voice of the older population, which is sometimes unique, is in there, and it makes for stronger advocacy. When you have people coming at these issues from a variety of directions, you can say it's not just about us, it's about them as well. What we are doing is trying to empower other organizations, and libraries are a place where people who need information go. And they
that
will
is
bring
what I
their
was hoping you
phone.
would bring up, is the libraries. Because I know that our Exeter Public Library, they're always like, we will sit with you. We will go through how this works. You bring your device and we'll work with you. The libraries. We love the libraries.
So last year we had a few $1,000s that we made available. And we contacted every library in the state and said, we have some money that we can support projects that try to build digital literacy. Propose something to us, and we'll be able to fund some of these projects. And the Moultonborough Public Library, the director there is fabulous. And she said, everybody on staff has iPhones. So when somebody comes in and wants help with an iPhone, we're all set. We know what to do. But none of them had Android phones. And so when somebody with an Android came in, they didn't know how to help them.
Totally. It's
so
like a different
we gave
language.
them a grant so that they could buy an Android and play around with it so that they could learn how to help people who needed it.
That's really cool.
Isn't it?
I love libraries. I think they do so much more. Similar to what you all said, AARP, we have assumptions maybe. We think about what you do and it's way more. I feel the same way about libraries. We think it's just books. There's so much more that is offered at the public library.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've helped them. They had a bunch of small laptops and things that their patrons were using.
Yep.
But a small screen, small keyboard. We helped them buy bigger screens, bigger keyboards, so that people who might have, trouble with their eyesight could still use the computers easily and just have that ease and that comfort.
Can we go back a step? Because we talked about broadband and technology, and I'm curious because I see in the news that sometimes there are issues related to fraud and people who are sort of being perhaps a little bit predatory. Are you seeing that in New Hampshire?
We have a lot of data about fraud, both nationally and in New Hampshire, and the statistics are frightening. So in 2024, people in New Hampshire reported losing $12.5 million to fraud.
What?
And we know that's
$12.5 million?
$12.5 million. And that's a vast understatement.
God,
because
totally.
There aren't that many people who are calling the Federal Trade Commission and reporting that they lost money to fraud. So it's a huge amount. And that is up 25% from the year before. Bad enough. It's up 150% since 2020. So fraud and scams are just proliferating. AI is making it that much
Oh my
easier to
God.
target people and make them believe something that just isn't true. And one fact that is important to remember, and this is a great example of how the issues that AARP focuses on are relevant to people 50 and older, but they are also relevant to younger people, is that the younger people are actually more likely than older people to report losing money to fraud. But
Oh.
those who report, the older people lose significantly more. So the median loss of people in their 70s is $1,000 per person. And in their 20s, it's $400 per person. And that is for all types of fraud. If you look at cryptocurrency ATMs, so this is something that ARP is focused on a lot right now. So these are machines that you might see in a grocery store, convenience store, smoke
Wait,
shop,
really?
where,
Okay. I didn't even know
yeah.
those existed, Christina. Cryptocurrency
Oh,
ATMs?
yes. So
I am
you
a
can
prime
go.
target now. Now everyone knows I'm a prime target because I didn't even know those existed. What? Okay.
They
All right.
are,
So they are real
yeah,
things in
they are real
places?
things. There are 250 of them here in New Hampshire. So the idea is you can take out cash from your bank and go to one of these crypto ATMs. You create a digital wallet and you can deposit your cash and have it transferred into a cryptocurrency of some kind, Bitcoin or something else like that. And what is really challenging is that the scammers know that people are unfamiliar with this, and they
Yep.
know that it's an easy way to steal a lot. The average amount that people are losing, older people are losing to crypto ATM scams, $40,000. People's life
What?
savings. Yeah,
Oh
these
my
scammers are so
God.
good, and they get them on the phone and they convince them that they are from the bank or they're from law enforcement and that their money isn't safe, that they're going to be under criminal investigation if they don't do something about it right now. And so they will instruct the person to go to the bank, withdraw all their savings.
Oh my God.
Keep them on the phone, tell them how to answer the bank tellers when they ask them questions about how are you going to use this money because they're trying to protect people from fraud. They'll go to the one of these crypto ATMs and then these folks will feed in a $100 bill at a time, thousands of dollars. It takes
Oh
hours.
my God.
It's
Mhm.
so
What?
horrible. It's really, really horrible. And then the reason scammers like this is because the whole idea of cryptocurrency is that it's hard to trace. So once it's on the blockchain and it's transferred to the criminal's digital wallet, it's gone. And so we're working with police chiefs across the state to try to make there be stronger consumer protections and try to protect people from fraud because these are criminals. They use really sophisticated techniques or psychological techniques that they use to try to get people sort of out of their rational thinking mind
Yeah,
and into a place where they are scared. And when you are scared, you do
totally.
not make good decisions.
Right.
This is pernicious. It's really disgusting that there are criminals out there who are preying on people and leaving them destitute. I mean, just the stories that you hear are just heartbreaking.
My mind is
But the good
boggled. Oh
news,
my God.
the good news, Liz, is that
Yes, please.
we have been working, the staff in particular have been working on a bill that would provide some consumer protections, a daily limit, so someone couldn't put $40,000 into the machine all at once,
Mm.
and also a time frame where you could get your money back. Right now, as Christina said, you put it in, it goes in the digital wallet. That wallet then gets shifted all over the place, all over the world, and the money's gone. There would be a waiting period. The bill is still being worked on, but there is support for at least some level of, again, daily limits and some level of wait time that you could get your money back. The problem is, and it gets into caregiving, in the vast majority, I think it was 65% of the people that get involved in these scams are 60 years or older. And if there's a caregiver involved, it takes some time for the caregiver to realize something's going on. And whether it's, they're checking their monthly bank statements or they're talking to their elderly parent or whatever, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so we're looking to have some sort of a waiting period that there's a recourse that they can come back and get their money back. And we're having success there. We're not as far, there's a ways to go on this one too, but it's been very positive to at least get something. And other states have protections as well. And that puts us in the unenviable position of if we don't have any protections, then the scammers come and pick on New Hampshire.
There were some words that you all just used that I have seen in writing and I have heard aloud, but I wouldn't be able to define them. Blockchain, digital wallet, like those things are so not what I understand. And so to go back to what we were talking about earlier of somebody going into, let's say, a library and being like, can you help me understand how to use an iPad? That is how I am feeling right now as you talk about cryptocurrency scams. I don't know any of those things. So for those of us who are not quite 50 years old yet, we have places where we are going to need to learn things too, because everything evolves. Technology evolves. These fraudsters and scammers evolve. Boy, is that scary, what you just shared with me, to think of people taking out their life savings and then putting it in a machine out of fear. That is very, very upsetting. And Pat, to your point about caregiving, like the folks who are trying to take care of their family member and have them at home and so forth, you likely think that everything is like in control and that you have it because you're all there together. And that sounds like isn't necessarily the case, because
they're very sophisticated and they have a multitude of different approaches. And just a quick anecdote, I was a caregiver for my mother several years ago, and she got approached over the telephone and was told that she had won a lot of money. How she won this money, she didn't know, but that was something my mother would have spent anything. So somebody saying that, she owed a lot of money, that wouldn't have motivated her, but the fact that she could have won something. And of
mm,
course, the kicker was, but in order to collect this money, you got to pay the taxes on it up front. And she asked my cousin, who lived closer to her at the time, to bring it to the bank. And fortunately, my cousin said, no, you got to talk to Pat first. And that short circuited it. But my mother would have
yeah.
gone and taken money out of the bank to pay the taxes. So, fortunately, she had multiple caregivers, I guess, in that instance that were watching out for her. But it's scary.
One thing that I would encourage everyone to think about is how easy it can be for people to fall victim to one of these scams, regardless
Yep.
of your age,
Sure.
because they're criminals who, again, are very sophisticated. They are very good at what they do and have spent a lot of time perfecting their techniques for how to steal money from people. And because of that, because these are criminals, it's really important to have empathy for people who lose money to scams. So whether it's yourself and
Absolutely.
like how you talk to yourself about it afterwards or how you talk to a friend or family member, it's really important to lead with empathy and not say, how could you be so stupid? How could you fall for something like that? Because it's not because they're stupid. It's not because anybody's stupid. It's that they have been duped. I mean, there's somebody who has tricked them in a very sophisticated way. It takes a real emotional toll on people in addition to taking a financial toll, especially like when you think about it. I referred earlier to the fear tactics, but there's also the romance scams. And those especially, I think, they sound goofy. Like, why would anybody think that Brad Pitt is contacting anyone asking for money? Like, it doesn't make sense. But again, these scammers get you into a place where you'll believe things because
Mm-hmm.
they're good at spinning the story and giving you the impression that they are who they say they are. And so to break out of a scam like that, if you really believe that you found your soulmate, if you're going to get out of that scam, you're losing not just you've lost money. You might be feeling really stupid, like you don't want to believe that you have that it's a scam, and you're giving up the sense of connection with this. You think that you're in love with someone, and someone's in
Yeah.
love with you, and that's devastating to lose that. So it's really, really important to have empathy for people who have been taken advantage of by a criminal.
Do you have quick tips for people? Because listeners of this show may have family members. I mean, like you said, it could happen to any of us. What are the things maybe some quick tips we should think about
Mhm.
in the cases where it happens? Since it sounds like it's happening here in New Hampshire. This is a thing that is affecting people here.
It's happening all the time here in New Hampshire. So there are two things I would say. One is that while the details of scams differ, there are three hallmarks. One is that you're contacted out of the blue, whether that's on the phone or text or email. You're contacted out of the blue. Whoever it is trying to heighten your emotions. So, whether that is appealing to your loneliness or making you think that you or someone you know are going to be hurt or arrested or exposed for something. So, they try to heighten your emotions and they impose some sense of urgency that you need to do something right now or
Yes.
else this bad thing is going to happen. So, those are the three hallmarks. You're contacted out of the blue. They're trying to heighten your emotions and they are imposing a sense of urgency. If any of those things are happening, it's a red flag and you should step back. The other piece of advice that I've heard that I really makes sense to me is that we should all identify someone we really trust who we'd be willing to go to and say, I just got this crazy call. Do you think it could be
Ooh,
true? So
yeah.
somebody that you're willing to be vulnerable with.
A little gut
A
check with
gut
Yeah.
check.
somebody.
And so, if you're an older adult and your daughter or your son has needed to take over some things, like maybe they're going grocery shopping for you, maybe you're not able to do as much as you used to, you're probably not going to be want to be vulnerable with your child who's going to just
Mm,
think that you need even more help than you do.
yeah, what a
But
good
who is
point.
somebody that you would trust that you could go to and say, like, I don't know, what do you think? I'm worried. Or I really, think this might be true, but I just don't know. And that is something that we can all do and do for each other.
I'm signing up Pat for that for everybody who listens. If you're not sure who that should be, you're going to call
Absolutely.
Pat.
Happy to do it. I'm the voice of reason, Liz, the voice of
Yes,
reason.
right. Somebody who you can be like, just tell me what you think about this phone call that I just got or this email that I just
Mhm.
received. Because Christina, you're so right. If your children, if a family member has had to take over some responsibilities or some things, you might have that fear, the fear of your own, judgment or something happening within your family. And so you need someone else to talk to. That's this importance of community to be
Mhm.
able to avoid these scams. My goodness.
Yeah.
Such a good point. How's that bill faring in the State House to protect Granite Staters?
It's in the Senate right now, and it was recently voted out of committee. A strong bill was voted out of committee, and we are hopeful that it will have more than enough support in the Senate to pass. And then it will go over to the House. And there's a strong cryptocurrency caucus there and a strong cadre of representatives who really believe deeply in personal responsibility and that people need to be responsible for the decisions that they make. And if the
Mm.
decisions that they make involve them losing a bunch of money, then they should have been more careful. And that's something that we're going to be combating, that it's not about personal responsibility, it's about crime and crime fighting. And so that's the message that we're going to be sending. We have the support of the police chiefs. They're working this issue really hard. It's one of their top priorities, as it is for us. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to see some improvement in New Hampshire.
I am too. I think there is definitely some support there. There's, as I said before, work to be done. I think one point that we need to make clear is that cryptocurrency in itself is not bad. It is being used as a vehicle by criminals. And so we have to make that distinction because we're not against the cryptocurrency industry at all. We're just wanting to make sure there are guidelines and consumer protection for the people who are getting duped into using it in a bad way.
Yeah, part of it is the unfamiliarity. It's sort of newer.
Sure.
It's something that we're not familiar with necessarily. I myself, not super familiar with it. And so it's using that as a tool to
Right.
commit a crime. It's not that in
Yes.
and of itself.
Yep.
That's right. And New Hampshire, a lot of people we pride ourselves on being a crypto-friendly state. We're a state that embraces innovation in a variety of ways. And it's really important to remember, as Pat is saying, that this bill isn't about whether people should have access to crypto. They absolutely should. But there is a way to be crypto friendly that is still not friendly to criminals. We recognize that there people might see a tension there, and we really believe that there's not. We can be crypto friendly and still make life harder for criminals.
Let's make life harder for criminals, please.
Yeah.
Of all the people to make it harder for. Thank you both for sharing some of the issues facing seniors in New Hampshire. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
I really enjoyed it.
Yes, me too. You're very welcome. Thank you for having us.
And I'm glad that you're doing this podcast. You have a lot of great topics.
It's been really fun to make these and talk to folks about the issues that never end.
Right.
You just added one new issue for me. I had no idea that was even happening. So now it's a whole new issue.